Hi, I'm Rebecca Bach-Carcel. Let's take a look at the technical aspects of Andrew Marvell's poem To His Coy Mistress. The first thing we notice is the rhyme. Immediately you can hear, had we but whirled enough in time, this coyness lady were no crime. So line 1 and 2, they both rhyme. And so do 3 and 4, and so do 5 and 6. And you have way, day, side, tide, would, flood, refuse, Jews, etc. Now, why is he doing this? He could have rhymed 3 lines, or 4, or every other line, but he's doing sets of 2, little couples. Well, I think this reflects the purpose of the poem, which is for him to convince his sweetheart. The speaker of the poem wants to convince his girlfriend that they should be together, that they should be a set. And so when he sets up little pairs of lines, a couple, 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 and joins them with the rhyme, it makes them little sets of 2, 2, 2, 2 couples, which is what he's wanting from the argument he's making in the poem to the sweetheart. So cool, right? Now what else is he doing technically besides rhyme? Well, if you count the syllables of every line, had we but whirled enough and time, you get 8. And sure enough, every single line has 8 syllables. Now why 8? Well, I think 8 makes sense because the more common love poem would be a sonnet, and it would be written with 10 syllables in every line. So the formal way to write a love poem is to write a sonnet, 10 syllables. But this poem is not trying to be super formal. In fact, he's trying to be playful. He's trying to tease his sweetheart a bit. And you don't want to do teasing and playfulness in the formal sonnet, unless you're Shakespeare, and then sometimes you do. But Marvell chooses the 8-syllable line, shorter line, and I think it works better for his purpose than the 10-syllable typical love poem line. This is a different kind of love poem. It's more playful, and so 8 syllables is enough. Now, are these 8 syllables just thrown on there any old way? Of course not. They are in a pattern. There's a long name for it, but let me describe the pattern first. Well, you notice as you listen to each syllable that they're in little sets of da-da, had we but whirled enough and time. This coyness lady were no crime. So we have da-da. Well, English teachers call that an I am. Da-da. And there's 4 of them. Da-da, 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 da-da. So you have 4. Now let's call 4 tetra. We have I ams, da-das, and tetra, 4 of them. And then meter. And meter is just the word that means rhythm. So if we want to say that the rhythm of Andrew Marvell's lines here is 4 I ams, then we want to say that his line is iambic tetrameter. Tetrameter, but we say tetrameter. So iambic tetrameter is 4 of those iams, da-da, 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 da-da. And that's iambic tetrameter. Now, why? Why the iamb? Does it matter that he uses words like until that have the little da-da instead of words like bacon that have the opposite rhythm, da-da? Well, it does matter because it is said that the iamb is the most common rhythm of the English language, and it's the most conversational. And so if you want a poem to sound natural and conversational, then you want to use iambs. And that's exactly what Marvell does. He does have a poem that's supposed to be a conversation, the speaker speaking to this beloved. So he definitely wants to use iambs, the most conversational rhythm. Isn't that good? Okay. What else? Okay, these iambs. Sometimes he does switch it around, and instead of using da-da, he uses da-da, like that word bacon that I said before. One of the places he does this is with the word vaster. He's talking about his love growing vaster than empires, right? Vaster than empires and more slow. He said his vegetable love would grow. So this is in the first section. He's talking about the great many years that could go by praising her if only they had time for that. So when he gets to this word vaster, it emphasizes the vastness because it flips the rhythm, it breaks the pattern, and he says, my vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. So it just puts a little oomph behind that word vaster, gives an emphasis. Same thing happens in the next section when he uses the word deserts. Deserts, not deserts, because that would be something different, right? But he says deserts of vast eternity, emphasizing how bleak eternity would be if they weren't together. You know, time would just be going by and by and by, and they won't have made anything of it, and so eternity will just be like a desert. Well, desert gives the the rhythm da-da instead of da-da, and so desert gets emphasized. The bleakness is underscored right here. And the last place he has this broken pattern of rhythm here is rather. And this is in the last section where he's saying, you know what, we have to make the most of every moment. And he says, and now like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour. Rather is one of those Bacon words. And this makes sense because this is where he's saying, let's not languish in time's mouth. You know, let's not just be eaten by time and decay. Let's grab the moment. Let's make the most of the time we have. And so he says, rather, he wants to emphasize, we're going to do something different. We're not going to let time just wear us away and eat us up and eat our lives away. We're going to do something different, and that takes energy, and it takes a break in the rhythm, rather. Well, that's my idea anyway, of what he's doing with those three rhythmic changes. Now, one more thing I want to point out that he's using here, and that's enjambment. E-N-J-A-M-B, enjambment. This is when the poet decides to continue the sentence or continue the phrase onto the next line. So the line ends, but we're not finished with the phrase, and the reader is in suspense, wondering what comes next, as in this line. But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. Okay, so, but at my back I always hear what? We're left with the question. And so we hurry to the next line, time's winged chariot hurrying near. And lo and behold, he's talking about hurrying. Right where the enjambment forces us to hurry to the next line, he's speaking of hurrying in the sentence that time is hurrying by. So he forces the reader to participate in the hurrying that he's talking about by having us read the line, be in suspense, and push on to the next line. Now he uses enjambment in a couple of other places, I think a little less effectively or you know, without as much excitement for me. So I won't mention every single example, but I want to mention one more, and that's in the final two lines. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Thus, though we cannot make our sun, that gets us to the end of the line, but we're not at the end of the phrase. Our sun what? Stand still. Okay, so we're pushing past the sun, and we're trying to manipulate how the sun is, but we can't manipulate the passage of time. We can't manipulate the sun's track across the sky. Instead, when we try to, we end up with stand still. And those two words don't have a rhythm da-da, nor do they have a rhythm da-da. They're not Bacon words. They're not until words. Instead of I-ams, it's just stress, stress, and they're both equal, stand still. And he's talking about a stand still. And so the rhythm stops, equal, equal. Instead of the little engine that's been going da-da, 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 now we just have da, da, stand still. So the rhythm reflects the meaning of the words. The sun is going to just stand still, and the rhythm stops. And this lets the last phrase, "Yet we will make him run," be 6 syllables, short. It's the shortest little phrase to put at the end, and it makes sense because he's talking about making the sun run, making the time fly by because we're enjoying it so much. We're going to enjoy it, seize the day, and time's going to just zip by. And so that idea gets only 6 syllables, very short compared to the pattern of 8. So by using enjambment, he's allowed only room for this little 6-syllable phrase, but that's all he wants because he's talking about things going quickly. And so the phrase goes quickly. And it's the wrap-up to his whole argument in the very last line. So I think he's using enjambment really cleverly there, as well as the rhythm and the rhyme that we've talked about. Well, I hope you enjoyed exploring Andrew Marvell's technique here, and that you'll join me for another video.